as I mentioned before, the idea of limitation was extremely helpful, because limitation always brings challenges. You know, if we don't have everything on our disposal, but we have to deal with something very, very simple, and that's when we really become creative. That's kind of like, that's that muscle that we train to become innovative, I would say. Now, let's say if we make the acquisition of something like a paradiddle, which I believe everybody in here knows what I'm talking about. Once we address this structure of a paradiddle, it's like, what is a paradiddle? What is a paradiddle? Okay, that's a lot of opinions at the same time. So what I believe is a paradiddle is, it's a rudiment, it's a shape, it's an exercise, you know, like whatever you perceive a paradiddle to be, and when you practice that paradiddle, okay, so technically you have the grip, you hold the stick a certain way, there's a certain heights that you respect, you know, that makes it easier. Conceptually, you go like, okay, I'm gonna lift the stick up like that, you know, you have a concept about how to execute it. You're gonna get to a certain, level where you're gonna be able to execute the structure. Now, where's the emotional component in acquiring that, in that acquisition of like practicing this structure? This is going to be extremely informative. Whatever you do with a paradiddle is going to be expressed in how you acquired it. Let's say, for instance, you know, if you have a seed of an apple tree and you're going to plant that, it's not an apple tree, this is a seed. You're going to plant that, an apple tree is going to grow out of it. Or, you know, so like the seed of what it is the emotionality. So for me, I choose to think about a paradiddle as a melody, because I believe music is a statistical affair, but it's made out of melody. So for me, a paradiddle has always been a melody and not a sticking pattern. It's always been a simple melody. So if I take this structure, I'm saying, okay, now how can I create a musical narrative with this structure? By playing just this. Right, left, right, left, left. Okay. Now, you know, there's different ways how I can establish a musical narrative, you know, which is usually tension and release that is accomplished by contrasts. Which contrast is, you know, like the basic color scheme of the red, blue, and yellow. Musically applied to music is dynamics. So with dynamics, I can accomplish tension or tempo. Okay, that I can create tension. Timbre. Pitch. And then if I put pitch into a motive, I have melody. Simple melody, but nevertheless a melody. So all these things, and you know, there's there's more that help us to establish musical narrative. It's helpful to understand what it's made out of, you know. So you have certain motifs that you can create by pitch, by timbre, by accents. You know, for instance, you take any groove or drum pattern. Something like that, you know. I mean, I like that pattern because it has a little bit of like different subdivisions and like a little different, it's different components. So you do that, and you do like as a mixing console, you know, you start to elevate certain instruments. Hi-hat. Now, eventually you can get into like the detail of it with like the phrasing, okay? So all those inner beats become musical entities and not just a mechanical texture, you know, which is kind of like this is dependent from like that. So what I learned by doing things like this, I really started to be able to, you know, uncouple my inner hearing from what I was playing physically. So my inner hearing really started to like evolve, and at some point, anything that you do, you will be you have to be able to like hear it first. And if you have a lot of drummers like come to me and that want to increase the speed, I go like, well, you know, I can really play a single stroke roll on a pad or a snare, like, but yet I can still not play fast, which is their hands are able to play fast, but they don't hear really the musical notations that they want to do. So the problem is not a technical one, but it's a conceptual one. So those simple devices or simple meditations, as I would rather call it than like exercises, because I don't like to exercise. I think exercising is for athletes. You know, I practice or have been somehow like really opening up the way I behave behind my kit and the types of decisions that I make. Let me give you another example. You know, something. Okay, let's say you know, we have a pattern kind of like that involves all our limbs, kind of like a triplet pattern. You know, something that like probably most drummers know how to play. Like foot, right, left. Of course, there's many hybrids. You know, we can use the sticking and so on. But let's just stick with one, the most simple one, which is okay. Now we can distribute that over the kit and orchestrate it and so on. But let's stick with a pattern. Okay, one pattern that I like to illustrate. illustrate that concept is this. Let's see. Now, I'm gonna do the same thing as I did before. I'm gonna articulate or elevate every instrument individually. Now, it's very simple, but it's also, you know, already you start to see like certain shapes come out of that, you know. Now let's say, you know, once you're able to execute, you know, that independently and try to put more musical narrative into it. Once you feel comfortable with that, I use the same structure. You can use it over, like, you know, you can use it groupings of 3, for instance, over 16 notes. All right, so you have same pattern. Okay, it's just now goes over the bar line. So you see now we have more music already with like the same pattern, because my hearing allows to access that statistical shape and actually, you know, articulate more music with it. You know, now if I use the same pattern, let's say, and I mean the same sticking, same shape, but I leave the pattern that I lock myself in for, you do this for like, I don't know, 2 hours, you know, you start to hallucinate. So like, you know, then like the African element really unfolds, you know, comes in. And I think it's important to have experienced that when we play this instrument. You know, then the things becomes like, okay, oh, well, I'm not playing. I don't think I'm still playing. What's going on? So at that point, you know, let's say I use the same structure. Bring the tempo up a little bit. Okay, so there's not really, you know, of course, you know, I can use like odd groupings, but like the basic structure is the same, and it sounds way more complicated or way more complex than it actually is. So with this simple pattern, I can, you know, create way more music than I would usually do, you know, if I would approach it like, okay, well, I got that one, and I got... We can do that, you know, and if we only exploit it to this degree, we're going to lose something, because we're going to go, okay, well, now I got to start to, you know, do all the hybrid stuff, you know. Well, of course we can do that, but I think like staying with one pattern and really milk it for its potential, I think is a very good idea. And I think then when you're going to start playing things like that, it's going to sound like you, because you've been doing that meditation and you went through that, you know, you went through that zone of locking yourself out of unlimited possibilities and stay inside where those three zones start to communicate with each other.